Welcome back to the Basic Bee podcast. I am thrilled to bring you a very interesting topic with a guest that's actually near and dear to my heart, but I've only met him for the first time today, just like 10 minutes ago. So Leo Max is joining me. We're going to be talking about really how to wake up our deepest, truest, most authentic selves, which may feel a little bit out of left field for most of us who are business owners, many of you who have never been down this like spiritual healing journey. But we're going to make it super simple. It's going to be very flowy. We're going to see where we go with this. But before I bring Leo on, Leo is a spiritual hypnotherapist based in LA. His mission is to bring the soul back into therapy. He loves to take people that have done everything else and feel stuck. A journey with Leo is one that you'll never forget. And while I haven't done a one-to-one with Leo, I have participated in his group hypno sessions, which we'll talk about for sure. And I'm inside Natalia Benson's MWMM community, which I'll make sure I link all of this stuff below. But I've been in these group sessions, I've listened to his recordings, and I can truly attest to the fact that they are very magical and very memorable. So I'm thrilled to have you here, Leo.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm always stoked to talk about my wild, magical world of hypno to anyone that's open and available to listen. So happy to chat all about it.
Yeah. And I was telling you before we hit record, I'm like, okay, immediately when I hear Leo's voice, I just go into this. All right, we're going to go into like whatever recording.
I know a lot of people say that when I'm live with them, they're like, wait, are we going into trance now or what's happening? It's like, no, we're just chatting.
Your voice is extremely soothing. So, I mean, enjoy listening to this podcast, everyone. You are welcome. I do have to tell you this before I get into asking you a whole bunch of things. So I'm in MWMM with Natalia.
Yeah.
There was, I can't even remember what recording it was, but to set the scene a little bit, my boyfriend and I have been house hunting for quite a while now, and it's nuts and we haven't found anything. So we've been bouncing around all these Airbnbs. And honestly, my biggest fear just happened recently, which was that we wouldn't have any home. We had an incident. We had to like basically leave immediately. And I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work. Where are we going to be? Like you just start panicking. And whatever recording this was, it was just this full body knowing of this body is the only home that I ever need. And I think all you said was just like, come back home to yourself. And I remember crying and I was just like, oh my gosh. So I was able to release that feeling of like, I haven't found it yet. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
It's so incredible.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just, you hear the right thing at the right time in that right moment and it just strikes a chord. And it's like we hear a lot of sayings and truths. If you're online, we see all these memes and messages and inspirational quotes. And it's one thing to kind of read them and see them out in the world. And it's another when it really, really hits you and it becomes embodied. And it seems like that was one of those moments for you.
Yeah, it was a big one. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I'm
You're
so
welcome.
thrilled to get to introduce more people into your world.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you my typical question,
Yeah.
which is going to feel a little like disjointed. But good news is that you're a business owner. So here's the question. Which do you believe is the most important for sales? SEO, storytelling, or social proof?
At this moment, I would say storytelling. I think it probably depends on the phase of your business and the energy of your business. I feel like the most important for sales is having a really good service. To be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I go through phases in and out with marketing and I'll drop off the face of the earth for long periods of time. To be honest, last year I moved like 9 times in 1 year or something like that, something crazy. And I wasn't that present in social media or my business very much, but my business was still able to stay afloat and do well, still make a good amount of money in a year because of the power of the service that I offer. And I think when that is really strong, people will tell other people about it. And there's a ripple effect to when you make an impact on someone's life, whether it's through SEO or hypnotherapy or anything else. Because although they seem far apart, at the end of the day, we're here to support people. We're here to help business owners and individuals on their journey. And all these things intertwine. People come to see me for personal issues, and then it shows up in their business. People come to me, oh, I'm not making enough in my business, or I feel stuck creatively or not know what to sell or put out into the world. And it ends up very personal, things that have to do with their childhood and their mom and dad, 3, 4, 5 years old. So all these things intertwine at the end of the day. We think there's a lot of separation and division, but I think there's much less than we realize.
I think that is perfect and beautiful. And I think you tied this whole thing together and really just like what I knew was here, but I couldn't quite articulate. So I'm really glad that you were able to do that for us.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
I know.
Full circle moments.
Yeah, really. So let's start out with just like, what does authenticity even mean to you? Like when you hear that word, what comes up for you?
I think authenticity is living fearlessly
Mm.
and staying in your lane, not being in other people's business. And I think the other word that comes to mind is living in integrity. And I think when those are your North Star, to do what feels the most honest and real for me, even if it makes zero sense at all, and to live from my heart space, do what feels in integrity for me, I think that is naturally going to bring someone to an authentic life and an authentic person. And many times the journey of authenticity is very, very difficult because it involves saying things that are going to trigger people. It involves making decisions that are going to make people uncomfortable and having conversations that are not easy with our loved ones and people around us, or maybe kind of retreating for a while and having spaces and times of isolation to really carve out and really consider what is an authentic life for me. Because when you start to make those changes, people around you don't always love it because they want the version of you that's familiar to them. And authenticity usually involves breaking out of a mold of familiarity. And that's going to ruffle some feathers. And so that's why I bring in the fearless piece, because it takes the courage to continue, even if you and your life and your decisions trigger people around you.
That is so good. And so not only do you do hypnosis, you also do past life regressions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering, just as you're saying that, something that came to mind was after doing all these sessions and working with all these people, is there a certain moment where from young children up into adulthood where we get disconnected from that, where we start taking on the shoulds and the other people's stories?
Yeah, I would say mostly around 8 years old, around elementary school, when the brain kind of has this shift between like being in our creative fantasy world as a kid and kind of starting to form more of a personality and identity. There's more rigidity that comes through around that time in our minds and in our personalities. So I would say that the home environment is probably the number one thing that impacts people in terms of fear, authenticity, things like that. Something people tell me a lot is like, oh, I'm just an anxious person. Anxiety runs in my family. And they say that in a way of like, oh, that's just in my genetics. And what I tell people is it runs in your family because it was mirrored and because that's what was taught. It's not something innate in you that's irreversible. But it does become that when you just say, oh, it's just in my family, like that's just who we are. We're
Yeah.
the green fields, whatever. Then yeah, you're continuing that on. I don't think people realize how much power they have to change some of these traits about ourselves. And so I would say authenticity really begins there with the home environment, probably the number one impact.
Is there like a moment, an event that's a catalyst for someone to start to come to see you, to start down this like spiritual healing journey? I feel like you have such insight because you worked with so many people over so many years. Is
Mm-hmm.
there a thing that happens, or does there always have to be a thing that happens in order to get someone to go, oh, I need to just go check this out?
I would say most of the time, people only come to see someone like me because I do deep, very thorough therapy. Like it's not like, how are you doing today? And how was work this week? Like we go through the deepest, deepest layers, like everything we put way, way back in the mind and put a lock and key on it and then throw the key away into the ocean. Those are the things that we go fishing for. Like, and when did you throw the key away? And why did you throw that key away? And what did you think you were doing by locking that way, way back there? Let's get out a fishing line
Mm-hmm.
and some scuba gear, and we're going to go looking for whatever lost, sunken treasure you put at the bottom of that ocean. And I call it a treasure because It's usually shadowy memories, hard, difficult parts about ourselves, the things we criticize ourselves for, things we feel guilt and shame about. So if someone's coming to me, they're kind of signing up for a journey like that, which is obviously not the easiest, most lighthearted journey. So typically people come to see me when something in their life has become so uncomfortable that it forces them to make a big shift. It's like they don't just have a small limp. It's like their leg is in huge pain. It's like that's when they come to see me, not when there's like, oh yeah, I'm kind of annoyed by my mom, but it's fine. Or I'm sort of upset with my job, but it's doable. It's like they come to see me when they're thinking, I don't want to do this another week long. Like I can't deal with myself with drinking or how I eat or how I behave with my family or the mother that I am or living with this pain from my past. Like I don't want to go another week. That's when people come to see me.
It's good to hear that. And it's also like you immediately start thinking of your own stuff that starts coming up. So I'm sure anyone listening is going to be doing the same thing of like, oh yeah, this, oh yeah, that. Let's talk about past life regressions and hypnotherapy. Can you talk to us about what those are, what they look like?
Yeah. So in my sessions, I work very differently than a lot of hypnotherapists. My system is basically I drop someone into what we call a trance state, which is not as weird and crazy as it sounds.
It's not, I promise.
We go into these states all the time. It will feel like a very relaxing meditation and where you just have more access to yourself. From that place, I'll start asking you about symptoms and things in your life. Like, let's say you're really triggered with your partner. I'll say his name. And I'll say, when I say Brian, what's the very first thing you feel? And that comes up. And when you're in that state, you just feel things a lot more deeply. When I say, think about you not having a home, boom, your stomach drops.
Yep.
Your heart starts beating. Your jaw clenches. You start sweating. From there, I'll say, does that feel familiar to you? Does that remind you of any other moment in your life where things have fallen through? There wasn't a way forward. You didn't see what was coming ahead. There weren't a lot of options and you only had to rely on yourself. And you're probably going to go, yeah, I can think of a few things. And you pull on that string and you see how far back it goes. That question might take you to, yeah, when I was 8 years old, we moved a lot and we were always moving houses and I didn't know where we were going to go. And I had to restart all over all this time and make new friends. And it was difficult and horrible because I could never find grounding in my life. So we find that patterns replay. And maybe that also takes you to a past life where something else similar was happening because we repeat patterns many lifetimes to try and resolve. The soul wants completion, wants a full circle moment. And so it keeps putting us in. Put me in, coach. I'm ready for another lifetime. I'm trying this again. And God's like, okay, let's see how he does this time with this one. Like, you were on this path, then you went way off it. Let's try this again. Take 392. Here we go. Forgiving your mom. Let's see if you can do it this time. Nope. Okay. Messed it up. You slammed the door in her face and told her she was the worst person you ever met. You two are coming back together all over again until you figure it out. It's like when a parent puts two fighting kids in a room until you figure it out.
Yeah.
That's God putting us back into lifetimes over and over again. So basically, from your question, I ask a lot of questions about symptoms and how your body responds and feels and if things feel familiar. And from there, you just naturally go to what feels most important. If it's a past life, we go there. If it's this lifetime, we go there. Just because I want it to be natural and organic. I don't want to lean someone in a particular direction because it works for me. The session's not about me. It's about you and where your heart wants to go. So wherever that is, I go. But you lead. I ask the questions, you go somewhere, and then I follow you.
Yeah. And now I'm also wondering if I need to put intuitive in this podcast because yes, 8 years old. Yes, I moved a lot. I'm over here like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy.
You're getting red right now.
I know, because it's just like, it's like, yep, you're hitting on it. That is so wild. But even to think of like the fact that you said 8 years old and I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure I had some stuff come up and then it's like, boom, there it is. It's just so wild. And then like you were talking about, all that stuff impacts your business. All that stuff impacts your income.
Yeah.
All that stuff impacts your relationships. And so it doesn't matter what the pathway is, what the intro part is.
Exactly.
It's there and they're going to be playing off each other.
It's going to have an impact on every area of your life because either we're going to build a business that feels safe to protect us from those experiences we had. Like, okay, I'm going to build a lot of stability and a lot of organization, or I'm going to build a business that's super flexible, that can be on the road, that doesn't have a lot of physical products, because I remember what it's like to move around and move all my stuff a million times. So now I'm building an online business so that I can kind of rectify what happened in my childhood, or build a life that is like more prepared for the natural chaos that life is going to bring. And
Hmm.
you get to kind of see, wow, I never realized, like, from those moments, how it impacted even like the business I started. And it, of course, is going to impact relationships. We might go for someone that's really stable because maybe we didn't have that stability growing up. Or sometimes we're attracted to the chaos that was in our childhood, of like, that's what feels familiar to me. I'm going to go for the wild card because I know the wild card. That's what I'm used to. And that's what almost feels safe to my nervous system because it is familiar.
So, as you were even talking about souls coming in multiple times to complete the pattern, that really connected with me because my background is as a massage therapist.
Mm,
So, I used to be closer to your world and then I did SEO, but like it very much, like you said, it ties together and the dots are all there and they connect. But as a massage therapist, I would really see and continue to treat people's bodies where things got stuffed, stories got stuck, and even their bodies and their nervous systems are like, okay. So even just thinking about it in this like time capsule of this lifetime,
mm-hmm.
trying to get those things to unravel. But the way you're describing it with hypnosis and even past life regression, it's like zooming out and seeing that those patterns have been playing out for a long time.
Yeah, it's very possible. And I think all roads lead back to the body, no matter what, whether it's a past lifetime or this lifetime. It's going to be stored here in your current form in some way. And if there's a pattern that's overlaying from another lifetime, it's going to be present in your life in some way. So I also tell people, don't get too distracted with the past life stuff or this lifetime, because either way, you can clean it up here or in that lifetime. But you're in this one, so you might as well do it here. You know, like, you don't need to forgive your mom from 500 BC. You've got one right now to forgive. So work with the mom that you've got. Like,
Right.
it's more about the pattern than the person. It's more about your integrity. And back to your question, it's more about your authenticity. Am I showing up in this relationship, in this business, in my life with authenticity, with integrity, with heart? Or am I closing the door and self-sabotaging through ignorance, criticism, not treating myself well, not really going for it, not really being seen in a way that my heart really wants to?
Yeah. So you work with someone. What are some of the big wins that you see after someone works with you?
I would say the things I'm most proud of are, and it's interesting because this isn't really talked about a lot with hypnosis, but I love helping people with long-term illness. I work with a lot of people
Mm,
with cancers and autoimmune disorders, and to see their growth and evolution is really, really impactful. And what I love is when seeing people put it all together, because I work typically with the emotional, spiritual components of these things. Any chronic illness is going to have emotional components. My belief is that the emotions, when people have intense memories that are unprocessed, the emotions kind of build and stagnate like a lake that keeps growing with very still water. So it becomes filled with mosquitoes, mossy, it's overgrown. And that is what becomes illness and disease and long term pain. So when people can clean up the emotions of that lake, the body can heal and can alleviate itself from that stress and inflammation. And so I work with a lot of people in those situations. Then my number one topic is definitely sexual trauma.
mhm.
And it's my favorite topic to help people with, because they typically put a lot of blame on themselves and live a life very small and with shame and guilt. And to see people finally be free for the first time,
Mhm.
to really feel free of something like that in 40, 50, sometimes I see people in their 70s talking about things that happened when they were a teenage girl. To see that expansion, it's like a drug. I'll never get sick of helping people, in that way. So that's what I'm most proud of.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, both of those two things I've got in my past history, and it's very cool and it's very freeing and it's very just like a giant sigh of relief to be able to, in a way, move past that, move through that to complete the loop.
Yeah.
So that's huge. I love meeting people like you who are able to help people. Again, like you said, I've seen everyone, I've done everything, I've tried everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, Leo, like take me under. Let's see where we're going to go.
Jesus, take the wheel. Yeah. I mean, it's all in the subconscious.
Hmm.
That's the thing. People have done everything, but I'm like, you've done everything consciously, which is the smallest part of your mind. I tell people, imagine your mind is a giant mansion. Your conscious awareness is the broom closet. The rest of the mansion is your subconscious. So all the thinking, planning, doing, analyzing, processing, does this make sense? Is finger pointing, right, wrong, blame, he was there. All that is from the blue broom closet. You have to go deeper and explore the other rooms in this mansion to really see what's in here. What did I lock away
Mm-hmm.
because it was too painful?
Yeah. I mean, I've heard this sentiment shared a whole bunch, but for a while that protected you. But now that protection is actually sabotaging you from what you really want, what you really desire. I hear you. You don't know what SEO is or how it can help grow your business or connect you with the right people. Well, hopefully you're not still in that land of confusion since you're listening to this podcast. But if it is, here's a crash course in SEO. SEO is simply how you show up as the answer to a Google's question. By using keywords strategically on a page, that page can show up 24/7 in front of the right person who's searching for the thing you have. As an added bonus, SEO can also apply to your social media profiles, your podcast, and your blog posts, which, P.S., blogging is not dead. SEO is how you turn Google into your personal matchmaker. And this November, you can get me as your guide into the world of SEO. SEO and Grow is the 3-month group coaching program for CEOs who want to monetize their magic and stop giving all of their precious time to the algorithm. All the info is below.
Exactly. Yeah, it served a role because it got you through that time. You don't want to remember all of those things in that moment, but at some time, you want to go back and clean that space up, not just leave it a mess in that room. It's like having a giant party in the living room and then closing the door and locking it and be like, well, out of sight, out of mind. That doesn't mean the flies aren't swarming the room and, it's becoming a bigger mess just because you're not in the room. It's still part of you. And it just needs attention and love and awareness like everything else.
You have the best visuals. This is so good. I've got the murky lake in my mind right now.
Right.
So you talk about moving through a lot of things, loss in some instances, like getting rid of a disease or moving past that, getting the all clear from your doctors can be great. But the other thing that we also lose that I've noticed that it's taken me a while to process this and get to the point where I'm okay in air quotes with it. And I'm at peace with it. I can see the power in it, even losing touch with people. And I know that you speak to this. So can you just share a little bit about that?
Are you saying on your spiritual journey and on your healing journey, you kind of lose people?
Mm-hmm. As you evolve and grow and...
Yeah. Well, to give another analogy, I'm just, this is how I speak. This is how I see. I don't know. It's how it comes through. It's kind of like going through life on a long train, and some people get on your train for a while. And at certain points, they kind of become extra weight, extra baggage that it's not the right time. I think that as you evolve and heal, I think the things in our environment should update with that because you're a new person. And sometimes the person you were when you matched with that person in your life, whether it's a partner or a friend, you can't do much about family. You're with family unless it's, extreme situation. They're very abusive. You can almost always work with your family, but everyone else, you have to see if there's still a mesh for the version that you are in present time, or if they want you to be an old version of you. Are you inspired around that person? Do they lift you up? Do they celebrate your growth and evolution? Or do they just want to be your drinking buddy? Do they just want to complain? Do they just want to call it to vent and bring things down? Do they just want to say, oh, the world and politics and this and that? It's like, we all have an element of that. That's fine. But when that's the only note, it's like, at some point, I'm poisoning myself by allowing you to emotionally dump on me or to just be in that frequency in my field. And that's when discernment just comes through.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any words of advice for people to help them realize maybe when it's time for a change?
I would say when your body recoils or you feel bad leaving being with them or on the phone, I think that's all you need to know. Your body will tell you if you dread when they call or you are always trying to get out and making plans with that person, that tells you a good indicator of what's really going on.
That is so true. Yeah. And even reflecting back on some of those instances, I'm like, yep, I can see that. And that was part of my decision-making process, as hard as it was.
Yeah.
I think it was a couple years ago, almost 2 years ago to the date, where I started just having this big shift of like, I've had everyone else's back, but I haven't had my own back. And I could see that playing out in business and personal all over the map. And I was like, nope, we are changing this. I am taking my power back. I am having my own back and being my own cheerleader that I've been for everybody else.
That's amazing. Yeah, it needs to be reciprocal. It's not always going to be 50-50, and we're not doing, keeping tabs, but when there's a balance and you feel like that person is on your side and there to support you. The other thing as a business owner that I started to think about was I thought if I had to pay $100 to have this lunch with a friend, would I pay to hang out with them?
That's a good point.
And I'm like, if it was my best friends, yeah, I'd pay the money to hang out with them. This person, if you're like, I wouldn't spend my money on that person, that kind of tells you.
It sure does. That's good. So yeah, tapping into the body and then, coming at it from that way of like, would you actually give toward this person?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, those are good.
If that lunch was $100 or $200, would you pay it to go to lunch with that person?
Mm-hmm.
On top of the meal.
Right. That is very telling. That's helpful. Oh, man. All right. So let's say this is the first time anyone in my world has heard of this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think would be a really good first step for them to take to go on that self-healing journey, to dip a toe in the, I guess they'd be dipping the toe in the murky lake water.
Uh-oh. Careful where you dip.
Yeah, really?
I would say come to one of my group hypnos. I think that's a great way to start. I have one once a month, last Thursday of every month. And I think that's a good place to start. Another great resource is To Be Magnetic. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's kind of like a self-guided hypnotherapy. It's not really a program. I think they have an app, but it's a very reasonable price. It's like under $100 a month. And they've just got like hundreds of videos, and they really just break it down with like, okay, you're working on wealth, or you're working on your mom this month, or your dad. And it's like, gives you a bunch of journaling prompts and a lot of audio walkthroughs to kind of work through memories and emotions and belief systems. And I have a lot of people come from that program and then come and see me. And it's been very helpful for a lot of people. And it's a great place to start.
Yeah.
To just kind of have like break it down and separate things out and have like a trajectory.
Yeah. And also just to get familiar with a type of process, at least. I know you said you work differently than other. I don't even know how other hypno people work. I'm like, Leo.
I don't know either.
Leo's my guy. Yeah. And I know you also have, is it the inner child guided meditation as well?
Yeah.
I'll make sure there's a link for that too. So if you want to go, I have never been able to make it to one of the live sessions with you for the group hypno. So just for anyone listening, if that's you, because I'm on the East Coast, I'm usually in bed. I usually wind down at the end of the day and just like hang out with my boyfriend, and he's unfortunately not into this stuff. So I just listen to the recording. Like, you can do that if you show up live. I know Leo is always saying in emails, like, no participation is necessary. You don't have to say hi. You don't have to go in the chat. You can just be there.
Yeah.
Like, I would say it's a very beginner friendly situation, whether they download the meditation or go to the group hypno.
Yeah, I think it's very beginner friendly. Yeah, people talk and share at the end, but it's not necessary because I know that, and for myself too, I didn't want to share in groups when I started on this journey. So I completely understand. So yeah, people hear group, hypnotherapy. They're like, oh God, I'm not going to that. But you don't have to be on video. It's by donation only. So you can pay literally nothing and come. It's literally for all of you just to have a community and a space to come once every month that's very consistent, same time, and to start to look under the hood and see what's there among a bunch of other people that are in the same boat.
Yeah. And one other thing I'll share too is that there's always a different theme. I'm going to have a link to Leo's email list, and he always tells you what the theme is going to be. Check the emails. Yeah. And if one gives you that soul tug, that's when you'll know like that's the one for you. Check it out. Like you said, it's donation based. I mean, I've never met someone who makes things so accessible, and especially for something that can be quote unquote really out there. You really do just invite people with open arms and make it really, again, beginner friendly. It's just a nice space to be and check things out and see if it resonates with you and what happens, because there can be some really big shifts.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I try and always have an open door. We're here to be of service. Like I said, that's my mission. My whole life is service. And it's everywhere I go. It's like one of those things. It's like you're at the haircut. You end up doing therapy for the person. I'm like, that's just my life. I'm in a cab. I'm talking to him about how he came to America. Going through everything. And I think it's just back to your full circle. That's just if you're living from a place of authenticity, you also realize you have nothing to lose by sharing and giving warmth and an open listening ear. It's like the competition and scarcity, they kind of dissolve when you really live from your heart, because you know that you'll always be provided for if you're taking care of others.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I thought to share, and then I'll grab all the links from you before we go. But this is the thing I keep seeing, especially with SEO clients that come in the door. I ask them 3 questions, which are, who do you help? How do you help them? And what do you want to be known for or as? Now, hearing those, you would think it's a pretty simple answer, but people will hem and haw about all 3 of them. And what I've realized at the root of it is that there's some resistance, there's some story, there's something that they're bucking up against where they don't feel safe to go ahead and just be that and live that openly. And like you said, just like so freely and so fearlessly. So it very much comes into every facet of your life.
Yeah.
Every grocery store, cab rides, getting gas, whatever it is, like it's coming in everywhere and impacting things.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Is there anything else you want to share as we wrap up?
The last thing I want to share, my message to people is to just start. Honestly, I know that the healing journey is very daunting and scary. All I can say is that there's nothing more worth it than you will do in your whole entire life than to learn more about yourself and to continue your evolution. And it's not always a linear road. It's going to be bumpy. I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. It might be weird as hell sometimes too, but that's the journey. And to just start to reach out to people, to start trying things. And it also takes a little bit of time to find what works for you. So that's a big message I tell people to try out many different therapies and communities and modalities. There's thousands of ways to heal. It doesn't have to look like anyone else. So find what works for you, but just start.
That is perfect. And I couldn't agree more. Okay. Where can people find you?
I am sort of online.
Loosely there.
I'm in and out. I am on Instagram at Restorative Hypnosis. And a promise to my community that I'm telling everywhere, just so I'm held accountable, is that I will be starting a YouTube. And if I keep saying it, then I'm going to do it. Because then it's out into the world. So stay tuned for some YouTube videos.
We'll be accountability buddies for that, because
Thank you.
I have all of these recordings. I'm going to put them out there. I've gotten all the SEO tips and the advice from my friend Jamar Diggs. I'll link his episode below. But it's like, I'll do it when I have time, when I fill in the blank. So yeah, we'll be accountability buddies on that.
YouTube, it's coming.
It's coming. Loading. Well, thank you. This has been a really special episode, and I'm so glad that we were able to make this work despite all of my schedule stuff.
That's life. I'm used to it.
It is life.
And thanks for being part of my community too and coming to the events.
Of course.
Even if you're not there live, everyone contributes to the energy.
I'm always there in spirit.
Exactly.
Always. Well, thank you.
You're so welcome.
Talk to you really, really, really soon.
Great.
You've got questions. You want to know what SEO is, what it can do for you, why you need it like yesterday, and what it's actually going to require from you and your team should you choose to start doing SEO. Because social, you're kind of over it. You're tired of throwing more and more money at ads and of needing to post like 1,000 reels a week just to get in front of more people online. Good news, it's never too early or too late to start with SEO, and you do not have to dive into this alone. Bonus, I love answering questions. Starting this November, you can get me as your personal SEO pro and dedicated question answerer in SEO and Grow, my 3-month group coaching program for CEOs who want to monetize their magic and stop giving all their precious time to the algorithm. You'll find all the links and things below.